but raised money from the Valley and Europe at that time. And then I hit the dot-com crash, so we sort of failed first time round, but then actually managed to pull the company around, make money, sold it at a return for our investors later. And then I went into investing. I started investing in startups, helped create a fund called Entrepreneur First, which is in 6 countries around the world. It's an accelerator. So I did that for several years. And I joined a growth fund, investing in deep tech, some of them of which were robotics and AI, which is why, again, this suited me too, doing intrinsic. So I know the whole life cycle. I love investing, but I actually love building the most. So I'm really happy to talk to startups.
Chief Operating Officer of Twitch, live streaming platform. Hi, my name is Kevin Lin. I was co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of Twitch, live streaming platform. We sold to Amazon back in 2014, and then I left in 2020 to come out to Taiwan. Also served 2 batches as a Y Combinator visiting partner. So if you're ever interested in learning more about Y Combinator, happy to talk about that. These days, I have a game company called MetaTheory. We have a actually 22-person team here in Taipei making all kinds of games on Web3. And then also have a fund, recently launched fund called Lifelike Capital. We're in early stage, seed to Series A, so we'll invest in founders that are just starting to stem an idea. And we are actually partnering with another group of friends called 886 Studios, launching an accelerator here in Taipei called Ikigai. We're looking for founders who are just getting going. And we do seed investment and mentorship, over a dozen mentors from around the world, many of whom are exited founders.
I'm a managing director.
Always happy to talk startups.
PwC Business Consulting Services. In PwC, Hello everyone, my name is Andrew. I'm a managing director in PwC Business Consulting Services. In PwC, we support and support our clients and partners in their strategic business decisions, and also supporting their daily operations efficiencies through the technology consulting, and also for the extending the service, not only strategically in the business related, but also financial taxes, like any of the big 4 firms. Thanks.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, because today we really have all stars, so I will just have the 3 questions on stage, and then I will open the floor. Yeah, because today we really have all stars, so I will just have the 3 questions on stage, and then I will open the floor for any member to raise the question. So the first question is because now we have the panelists with different industry expertise, so I want to dive a little more about from industry perspective. So for example, Jamie from telco, James from the manufacturing, and also Wendy can share about what's automation, robotics, and also Kevin can share about gaming. So, and how we start from telco first. For your specific
you want me to talk about
for the AI industry, AI trend for your specific vertical expertise.
So in terms of telco, we're mainly applying AI in 3 sort of areas in our operations. Number 1 being customer service. So we have a pretty sizable customer service team, around 1,500 seats. We take around 1.5 million phone calls per month. So there's a lot of data that is being generated during the process. For example, we have 10 million subscribers in Taiwan, and they are spread across the island. So when they call our customer agents, they all speak a very different tone, and sometimes very different dialect. So we take the data and we use that to train AI that is specifically designed to listen, understand Taiwanese people and their accents. And from there, we can use the AI to help our agents summarize every call, and use the data to help improve our agent or improve our service process, improve our selling process. And we're also working with a bunch of companies to take that AI and make it generally available for companies to build on top of it. So it's probably gonna be released as an open source project later this year or earlier next year, latest. So from there, maybe some of the you guys, if you're interested in working on voice, that can be an open source project that might be quite useful to you. Another area would be our in-house, we call it staff agent. When you're working in a big company, there's all kinds of different things that you will need to get answer for, and sometimes it's not very easy to get answer. I know maybe Tina and the Google people will also share the same problem, and so we specifically designed an AI to be our essentially internal Gemini. So since we're in a Google event, so we don't use the other name as an example. So we call it the internal Gemini, and so people can post questions to our internal Gemini and get answers on like how can you, for example, if you have a plan to get pregnant, what kind of sort of benefits you can get, what kind of vacations you can get, things like that. So that's another one. The third one being we're taking the AI and also taking all of the data we collect that's flowing through our network and creating anti-fraud or anti-scam sort of features or products with it. One of them being our anti-fraud consumer app. We call it 反诈战警个人版. So anyone can download that app in your App Store or Google Play. Actually, we're in a Google event, so only Google Play, no App Store. So anyone can download the app on the Google Play, and the app will help you scan the phone calls you're getting, the short messages you're getting, and also the websites you're browsing to help you prevent from sort of getting scammed. And it is based on all of the data we collect through the traffic that is flowing through our network. So those are the three main areas that we're applying AI. Of course, we have all kinds of various big and small other AI projects. But if you want to talk about telco and AI, these are the things that we're working on. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so basically it's customer experience and also employee experience. So how about James?
Okay, Foxconn is a manufacturing-centric entity. So I totally agree with what Jamie just mentioned. We're already seeing the customer support call center, and probably in the future, in the near future, sales and marketing activities will be augmented by AI. But this is my observation. I think to replace blue-collar tasks is much more difficult than white-collar tasks. And I'm not talking about the here and there, just the peaceful automation. I'm talking about the overall automation or AI-enabled activities. As you know, that we have several lighthouse factories all over the world, but for those manufacturing process, they are pretty much without that flexibility, if you see what I mean. So currently, what we focus on is really focus on the infrastructure, the compute and networking, thermal, all those kind of things, so we can help our customers to relatively faster to deploy those infrastructure, to provide a compute. Having said that, it's not really, we don't, for Foxconn, AI is a path we will take. So that's why we work with Intrinsic, we work with Google, so that we can, in addition to the infrastructure, we can have the tool chain, and also we are also looking at to develop our own generative language model, so to speak. So this is what we do.
Thank you. Wendy?
I agree with James. Yeah, I can probably build on what James was saying. So I talked about it a little bit in my talk earlier. I agree with James that the harder things are the blue-collar worker tasks. Why is that? Because you need, I think I talked about it a little bit in my talk earlier, you need sight, you need to have, you need the ability to touch and feel, and you need the ability to move around to do the tasks that blue-collar workers do. Yeah, and those are much more complex tasks to do with automation, and you need robotics, and you need AI for that. And there are increasing breakthroughs happening in that, so I think you'll find that, you know, some of the things that we'll be offering for Foxconn with Intrinsic will be better vision. Now, what does vision provide you? It means that you can adapt in real time to what's going on in the environment. The real world can shift. So things change very quickly. Even if you simulate an environment, the real world can shift around it. And if you don't know that adaptation, then the physics is such that you can actually either hurt somebody or you'll damage a product. So that doesn't work for production. So you need vision. You need feel and touch, so you can do things that, to be quite frank, we take for granted as human beings, like putting a key in a lock. Yeah, how do we actually do that? We do it by, we actually use our sight first. We use our sight to approximate the lock, and then we use feel to get into the lock. The way we do that in robotics today is you have to specify coordinates of how to get there. But the problem is if the lock moves or the key is slightly damaged, or you would miss it, or it would not go in, whereas a human being can feel their way in. And then the last one is moving. We can already start to have basic motion and with AMRs. You've seen AMRs moving around in warehouses. The thing is that AMRs, when things become more complex, and you want to have, let's say, 8 robots working together in a very small environment, how do you do that? If you try and do that through programming, they're likely to hit each other, or there are only optimal ways of doing it. You can use AI to actually do much more complex path planning and motion planning, and so different options become available with that. So we're using AI for that type of more sophisticated task. Now that's the harder stuff. The easier stuff to do is even using AI for design. So for things like production lines and work cells, you could use AI to actually help you design an optimal work cell or an optimal line. And then again, where we would like to help Foxconn, for example, is at the factory level. When you've got a lot of different devices, a lot of different production lines, maybe a lot of different product lines, even maybe a lot of different factories, how do you optimize the logistics? How do you optimize the processes? How do you optimize the inventory flow? So actually, again, you can use AI for that too. So I think there are many areas I think it's going to happen around robotics and AI.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, I think in games.
Hopefully they get the chance to see the real robot in front of us. Yes. Kevin.
Yeah, I think in games, and this is somewhat true for creator economy at large, actually building off of Wendy, games, it's pretty much every sense except for smell. So much of it is touch and feel combined with auditory and obviously visual. So it's interesting. I think the basic stuff that's going on in the game space is rendering, right, making it cheaper, easier, faster to create, particularly 2D games. 3D is a little bit harder, but that will be solved pretty soon. And rendering technology will become cheaper, which means higher quality, AAA quality games will be accessible to pretty much any studio, whereas that was a major limitation for indie studios who didn't have budget. And then some of what Jamie said, a lot of just basic stuff that the games industry is starting to use for cheaper, faster building, customer support, better QA, faster QA, more sophisticated AI-based testing, interaction design. But I think where really it's all going that's very fascinating is pretty much, I think, in the very near future, gaming as a human activity is going to shift very dramatically from spending most of your time. And gaming, by the way, is the #1 activity for the average person across the world. Right? The average person in the universe of humans spends 3 hours a day on games. That's more than TV. That's more than video. That's more than social media. So that's why you see the Netflixes of the world and YouTube and so on adding video games to their platforms, because that's what people do. But I think where AI is going to take it is now animation's really easy. It's going to be a lot easier for anyone to do that. But from a game-making perspective, rather than jumping into a Roblox or a Minecraft or a Fortnite and sort of building games inside of these sandbox environments, you could just do it from your phones with your friends. So you might say, hey, I have an idea for a game. I type it out in a paragraph. I send it to my group of friends. One friend says, this is awesome. What about this? Let's change that. And that will become play, right? Sort of like going back to when we were children. Inventing games, using your imagination is going to be much more easily accessible to everybody. And games will be similar to the content proliferation of the cloud era, where content distribution became basically free for everybody, and content creation became cheaper and cheaper. Video games will experience the same thing in the very near future. And so what does that mean? Where does that take us as humans when you don't necessarily need to jump into a game that costs $200 million to make just to have a good time with friends? You can make your own. It opens up a new economy, it opens up new play, it opens up new sort of usage of imagination, and I think that's really fascinating, right? When you have a chance to make something that people want very easily in a mode games that people can really onboard onto very easily, is I think where the potential is going for the games industry.
Because when we see the AI boom, that's the first question. And the second question, because now we are in Taiwan, so because when we see the AI boom in the recent years, how we see the uniqueness for Taiwan in terms of opportunity and challenge. I know in our panelists that we have several people that have been closely in touch with Taiwan ecosystem. So then maybe I can start from Andrew.
Yeah. Sure. In Taiwan, we have more than 1,800 of public companies in the public stock environment. And among all these companies, including the hidden champions or the startup that are booming in the market, we have several companies who are most focused on the manufacturing and electronics industry. Because everybody knows globally in Taiwan, we are most focusing on the electronics. Actually, those 1,800 are 52% are actually electronics related. I'm not saying we are only, but most of them. And PwC has been doing the past 6 years together with the government, the Taiwan Institute of Economic, Taiwan 经济研究院, and we have been working 6 years continuously about the survey of the Taiwan startups. So it's understanding Taiwan 创新环境, the ecosystem is happening in the startup here in Taiwan. So what is the message is sharing to us is the AI is booming. Everybody's adapting to it. But the question nowadays, the feedback that we got is, it's not anymore the companies asking, shall we keep adapting or investing? But the key question is coming, how fast and how quickly we can implement it into our daily operations, including our business strategy discussions. Why is that important? Because we want to keep the competitiveness in place. So this is a very interesting part to give a small snapshot about what the market, the Taiwan market is requesting from. Actually, the most required technology that we see from the feedback of the survey is about image and visual analytics. It's interesting because voice is already a mature technology, keep implementing, like Jamie says, in the telecommunications, right? But the image is another one that we see is coming next. And other than that, another technology that's coming booming is about automation. Yes, again, proven again, the production automation is needed, quality, no matter it's the content of the information that is generating from the production side. So these are the key technologies that we see this coming from, requesting, and not just from the manufacturing side, but manufacturing requirements are only 25% of the survey, but most of the requirements coming from medical related, from customer service related, from virtual assistants that they are requiring from this. So we are seeing from different perspectives what is really looking for. So what we try to say here is a lot of requirement is booming. It's not anymore to question about if we need AI, but how quickly we can implement it and how we use it. The information itself is trustable, is transparent enough, is good enough, is the amount of collected information is enough to bring us to the next breakthrough, the next booming, next growing, to the competitiveness of the company.
And also Kevin has also continuously thanks for sharing. I think because Jamie and also Kevin has also continuously mentoring all the Taiwan ecosystem startups. So how you see and also observe any specific insight, maybe that's starting from last year till this year.
It's quite exciting. Yeah, I mean, I think starting from the most basics, I think the startup scene here is quite exciting. Thanks to people like Jamie and a lot of other folks who have been really pushing from really seed stage as a startup ecosystem to where it is today. I find founders here are excellent. I think they are well educated, well trained. They have the drive and the conviction to build something. I think on the software side, I won't comment as much on the hardware side because that's not my specialty. But I think Taiwan obviously has a major advantage, right? We know where the technology that powers the software is going pretty much before anybody else, and so can we leverage that as an ecosystem? But I think from a potential perspective, founders here are just as hardworking as anywhere I've ever seen. I've worked with founders from I've personally invested in 400 companies, worked with founders from all over the world, and I think being here is quite motivating. And I think you need some parts that are somewhat missing, like bigger ideas. Something we learned from the Hatcher program. A lot of great founders. A lot of ideas are just a little bit more local, so to speak, and or just not big. Like as in they're great as standalone businesses, but can they become billion-dollar businesses? Can they reach hundreds of millions of people around the world? From the consumer perspective or from the enterprise perspective, can they really become a fundamental piece of foundational hardware, software that people work with? So I think the potential is really good. And again, I think the main thing is the insights that if the community could have a bit more dialogue, and forums like this are great. Products like Hatcher, groups like AppWorks are incredible at creating this forum. This is what's special about San Francisco is people come, the smartest people come from around the world in the hopes of a dream. But really what's going on there, it's like an open source mind. People are talking to each other about ideas and technologies that they're using, and that is absolutely critical to learn how to use technology faster. And it's more important now than ever because AI itself is improving and changing so fast. Pretty soon it'll be changing itself. So how do you keep up if you don't have dialogue? I think that's what folks like 886 team, myself, and others are trying to bring that type of sort of more open discussion to discourse here, but I think the potential is quite tremendous.
I think the local just to build up on what Kevin has said. So I think the local startup ecosystem is definitely I would say up there with most of the other sort of startup hubs in the world. Of course, Bay Area is still maybe cities around the world, I think 5 to 10 years ahead of Taiwan, but all the other major cities around the world, I think Taiwan is, or Taipei is is comparable in terms of sort of smart, young, driven people wanting to start their startup, and many of them are building AI startups or blockchain startups these days. Tino was asking about what kind of special edge Taiwan has. I think there's a few things founders can think about. Number one, we're the largest community of traditional Chinese users. Right, so right now, if you talk to Gemini, it's very good with English, but it's traditional Chinese sucks, right? So there's still opportunities for you to build AI services that are specialized in traditional Chinese, and because we're such a small language, the sort of magnificent worldwide companies, we're probably like somewhere down their priority list, right? So you do have maybe 3, 5, 10 years lead time before they get around to like really bulk up their traditional Chinese offerings. So you can look at what people are doing in the English world or other language world, and try to take a couple pages from their playbook and do it in the traditional Chinese market. Of course, the market is not huge, but there's still a market for you to operate in. Another thing I think is interesting is and I truthfully, I hope more founders would pursue that, would be to leverage your proprietary hardware to produce your proprietary data pipeline and use that data pipeline to train your proprietary AI. So one of the examples would be Garmin, right? So around 10 years ago, when Apple came up with the Apple Watch, everybody thought Garmin is going to be dead. But fast forward 10 years today, not only did Garmin not die, they're actually thriving. And the reason being they're continuing. They've been continuing to refresh their watch, and their watch is so specialized in sports. It's a niche market versus the mass market Apple Watch is trying to address, and so that the sports lovers would still go for Garmin. And in a sense, many people start with Apple Watch, but when you realize that it doesn't give you enough data in terms of your sports training performance, then you will upgrade to a Garmin. And once you start to use your Garmin, you start to collect your a lot of your health data, and from there, Garmin is actually able to train their own AI. So now if you're wearing a Garmin watch, they can actually offer you an AI coach. To every day when you wake up, they will tell you how ready you are today for training and what kind of training they would suggest you do, and it's all AI, right? And that proprietary AI built on proprietary data is so powerful that it's very hard for even a big company like Apple or Google to compete with them. I see that with Pixel Watch 3, Google is also trying to move a bit closer to where Garmin is, but Garmin is still way up there, right? So that is a very good example. And you're in Taiwan, you're very close to companies like鴻海and other manufacturers, and it's relatively easier for you to build your proprietary hardware that would eventually give you your proprietary data and in turn your proprietary AI. And if you have all of that together, it's actually a very big moat. Even big companies, even for big companies, it might not be easy to penetrate your moat. So in terms of AI, when you're in Taiwan, I think that's one edge. Truthfully, I rather see. I don't see enough founders leveraging it. I rather hopefully more and more founders will realize that. That's one sort of special advantage for being in Taiwan that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, for Jeremy sharing, I want to make a joke that sometimes internally we have this description that in Taipei, our silicon design team, they design something, and then we place order at noon, and then in the afternoon, it was shipped to our data center in Zhanghua. So the example I want to share that that's echo to what Jeremy said, that because in terms of our ecosystem community in Taiwan, hardware, software actually is very, very close. We did have a certain velocity and also density that can kind of have something can make it happen quickly. Especially I really think that Taiwan, maybe we are not really a good speaker or influencer, but we are really a good maker to make anything, right? But just like what Jenny said, that's probably our strength, and how we can build on that strength, then can elaborate. And also, I agree what Kevin shared, that sometimes because it's too easy to be copied, so sometimes people are not really openly to share what we know, etc. But the trend coming out so fast. If we cannot exchange information, just like why we host the forum today, to ensure the community that have a certain occasion to exchange idea, then someone maybe you just like you are in a room to build something, and actually open the door, you find other people already make it happen, and especially now with AI. So I think that's some angle that we can think about that. Because I just hear from Jamie and also Kevin share about that. So I also want to hear from Wendy that, because actually today is just the second time Wendy in Taiwan. Actually, Wendy just visited Taiwan this year, right? But Wendy has been in startup and also entrepreneur area for many, many years. How you see the entrepreneurship type of spirit, and also how you see the leadership quality? Because Jamie also mentioned, and also Kevin also mentioned that there's a certain spirit. And maybe based on what you have observed and also you have experienced, and also can kind of share some wisdom with the team in the room. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll try share a bit of wisdom. The maybe some observation even about Taiwan. I think what you and Jamie are both saying is really important, which is what is the edge you have, right? So maybe when you think about entrepreneurs, and I know Kevin will know this too a lot, is when you're investing in startups, the main things I'm looking for, one, is the founders, it's the talent. But it's not just about talent, though, is what is your edge in that talent? Like, what's your right to win versus every other startup that's out there? And I do agree with, there's something really special about Taiwan where you really do understand the integration of software hardware, which is really hard. Software is, I say this as a software platform person originally, a lot easier to iterate than the hardware. It's very costly iterating hardware. And the fact you can like design something, ship it, and drop it in a day is like impressive. I couldn't do that from the UK. Yeah, put it that way. So I would not look at the UK and go, "You've got an edge in software, hardware, and logistics and making." But then when I look at the UK, though, the parallels for me are London is now the third biggest ecosystem in the world on startups. It's biggest in Europe. And it wasn't, though, when I started. I had to come to the Valley to get funding. There was no angels, there was no accelerators, there was nothing, right? But now, Europe is a center of capital around Europe for startups. It built a whole ecosystem of angels right up to big funds. It's very good at fintech, for example. It's good at AI. It's got very strong universities in that space. DeepMind came out of there. So it is about this ecosystem really identifying what it's great at. Then it comes to the entrepreneurial talent piece. This is the leadership talent piece. I think the biggest thing for me, you have to be hungry about something. Right? So what is it you're really passionate about, that you're driven for? I think you need to be resilient. Yeah, it's really tough. Like, there was a period where being in a startup was really sexy. It was like some sort of career you try and go into. It's really hard. Yeah, you fail a lot. It's pretty lonely as a founder at times. Yeah, it kind of sounds glamorous, but mostly you're solving everybody's problem, and nobody's going to thank you for it either. You don't earn a lot of money for a long time. I think my husband, funny enough, I actually married my co-founder, right? I'm not sure, that's not a strategy. I don't think my investors would have been that excited about it, except we actually made the return. But the one thing I would say is that we were both, we were resilient. We had to learn how to have a really great set communication and partnership. We doubled down. But co-founding partnership is tough like that. It's as hard as, if not harder than a marriage. So bear that in mind as well. Who you work with really matters. And that's the third thing I look for in an investment, is what's the dynamic like in that team. Yeah, you as an individual will not have everything. So are you good at finding the right people to work within a team, and can you actually get on? And then probably the last piece is probably what Kevin's looking for, which is it a big market? There's a difference between a lifestyle business and a real global scaling startup. So you have to really think about that too. What is that thing that could get to a scale? But again, using the edge that you have from here.
Thanks, Wendy's sharing. Because today, when I see the talk, and Chairman also shared that today we have the 20 countries ambassador to join today's event. So, and also Honghai has a lot of team in different locations. So how you see this from different market perspective?
Okay, I can share my 2 cents. Well, first of all, Honghai does like to make things. and we know our thing, how to make things. But鴻海Foxconn is more than that. And speaking of the strength of Taiwan, I think my personal observation is Taiwan is an excellent place to be a test bed. With a 24 million population, if you launch a product, you can easily get your feedback and pivot the product along the way. So I think, first of all, it's the right size for a test bed. And then speaking of talent, I think I cannot find another place like Taiwan where we have a very good mix of culture from Western and Eastern, and people here are very nimble and open to new product, new business model. And also, consumers here are quite picky. They're just flaky. I don't think consumers here are loyal to specific brand, which can be a good thing, right? So talent, consumers will be another. But speaking to, something relevant to鴻海Foxconn is when we talk about AI, we often talk about three major elements. The one is compute, and then energy, and then data. I think Taiwan has all three of them. We have this universal health insurance system, so everybody's health-related data is well stored. I hope it's well stored in the system. And the energy, and we already have this energy, green energy endeavor. And compute, I believe you already knew this, but for NVIDIA, they have 3 data centers outside the US. One is Tokyo, Tokyo 1. One is Taiwan, Taiwan 1. And the other one is in Israel. That explains the position of Taiwan. So in the AI era, especially when every boundary is becoming more and more blurred, I think Taiwan has its strength.
So now I'm going to
Thank you. That's what we hear from different experience, different perspectives. So now I'm going to open to the floor for open question. 不用担心，如果是要用中文问，我也是可以直接翻译的。
你要不要先站起来，然后介绍一下自己是谁？
That's all potential investor.
Hi, Jamie.
你要不要先站起来，然后介绍一下自己是谁？
That's all potential investor.
Hi, Jamie. Okay, so hi, everyone. I'm Howie from Perco. So I'm also the alumni of AppWorks. So my question is actually about when we are talking about AI, actually it will be the heavy issue of electricity. So in Taiwan, actually we don't really have that much electricity. So what do you think about this as a challenging or the possibility that for the startups or for the brands that want to tap in this field? Thank you.
This is a very big question, to be honest.
Who's gonna take the question?
Because our government official just
This is a very big question, to be honest, and because our government official just laughed.
I really think this is the question he can help us to answer. Yeah, but maybe I can kind of frame a little bit that actually the energy challenges everywhere, not just Taiwan, to be honest. Yeah, and I think especially probably I only can speak for Google that we are doing our hard work to ensure that how we can have balance. For example, this year we just have a renewable energy deal in Taiwan that we also collaborate with all the energy ecosystem in Taiwan to see how we can contribute to this challenge. So I think this is something probably technology can help to solve in the future, but this is definitely one key challenge that everyone should pay attention. But I think the question will be answered by government will be better than us. But thanks for your question.
If may I would like to try to answer your question as well. From PwC, we have been focusing on not only on the artificial intelligence, but also the other social topics that we have in Taiwan. We care about society. And myself, I have been involved in the renewable energy sector for the past 5 years. So I will try to share my view. I believe with the government, we are all working about the energy topic, the consumption. the energy most consumers are based on the industrial and the home, right? So, of course, we are growing our GDP. We are exporting our product to the global worldwide. And manufacturing is an important player who really consume a lot of energy. And of course, this is a criteria that the government receives from the industry to support and provide the resources, not only the energy, but also safety environment for the sustainable growth. And jumping into specifically on the energy topic, we understand is about several energy generated from different areas, for example, nuclear, hydrogen, but we also understand the past 10 years we have solar panels, we also have offshore wind farms. Right? For the offshore wind farm, I would say, just an example, has been several rounds. Round 2, round 3, 3.1, 3.2, coming to 3.3. There are several topics. This is not our topic today, but I would like to share that the government is keeping improving, introducing new energy sources to support it. But what we can say today is, today, the energy is still enough. We are still using it, right? We are using all the energy. We have the energy here, not only from generating, transmitting, but also storage, connecting to the grid. I believe no matter what comes, energy is always a topic, is that? But we live with the resources we have. We save as much as we can, and we keep improving from there. At least we don't see there's an immediate urgency that cause national security in this topic. Good?
Good afternoon.
Thanks.
My name is Fai. I'm one of the startup founders here, coming from medical device startup. This question is actually... Good afternoon. My name is Fai. I'm one of the startup founders here, coming from medical device startup. This question is actually intended for such an international panel, mainly, especially on the industrial and the robotics and hardware side, so perhaps Wendy and James. So, given what's happening in the world right now with countries, and political sort of divides, from your perspective, how do you see your industries coming together, growing apart, and how should startups right now navigate this, especially in such a wide world? Thank you.
Also a big question. I have to admit, I'm a great believer in working together to actually change. I have to admit, I'm a great believer in working together to actually change culture, if you like. And in fact, we have. It's why we're here. So I'll give you an example. We have partners in, obviously, Asia here. And I try not to make a distinction. We have partners in Germany. We have partners in the US. And I try not to make a distinction, to be honest, between those. I try to understand each culture and what opportunities are in each of those countries and what sort of products they need and their situations. And in all of those, there's always... I'll give you an example. I think there will always be positives and negatives and commercial opportunities in that situation. I'll give you an example. I think you all know through COVID, some companies, I don't know, let's take something like Zoom, right, did so well that nobody was anticipating. Yeah. People also then invested in things, they probably over-invested as well in certain points because they didn't anticipate the change that would then happen afterwards. So there are always externalities that happen that you can take an opportunity from. So I'd actually say as a startup, you should always just keep being adaptive and look at that. Where there are changes in regulation, for example, there is always an opportunity. Where there's changes even in politics, there is always an opportunity. Yeah, so if you're going to be entrepreneurial, I think that's the main piece you have to think. There will always be an opportunity one way or the other in those fields. So I would be adaptive, but not take those take the risk, if you like, in certain spaces if you have an expertise.
I can base on my own experience that we made quite a few investments overseas. I will say. I can base on my own experience that we made quite a few investments overseas. I will say a small portion of the investment are based in Taiwan. So I can tell the differences between founders from different regions. Having said that, I just mentioned that I believe in this AI era, so to speak, the boundary is getting more and more blurred. If you see the building blocks for the AI, you will not only see people from Silicon Valley, right? You will still see people from different domains. And what is more important to me is for the talent in this era, AI era, it has to be interdisciplinary. Because AI for me is still a tool. For example, your company is a medical device. You need AI to enable you to provide better solution to your customer/patient. So I wouldn't say there's a huge difference between the founders in Taiwan. There is in terms of culture and personality, but I will say, in particular in this era, the boundary is not that clear.
Or I can ask one question.
Okay.
还有其他人吗？ I have 2 kids already. Or I can ask one question. Because Tina, because right now, I have 2 kids already. I'm so worried about the future of the young generation in the future. So maybe can you or can Jamie or Wendy, Kevin give us some advice that what startups can play a role in our child's future? Because with the culture, Chinese culture, people, as a parent, I want my kids going to TSMC, go to Google Taiwan. I don't want them to go to startups, but at the same time, I know how significant a startup could be. So that's always the paradox for as a parent. Thank you.
Saves us. Right, I think the optimistic future is. I mean, I think AI either destroys us all or saves us. Right, I think the optimistic future is, and we may not even notice this happening. It may already be happening. That AI teaches it to the energy point, teaches us not to destroy the planet, not to destroy each other. I don't know. That may just be invisible to us. But I think I'm trying to advocate as well, and I think about this a lot. I talk about my friends who have recent newborns about this, and where is really society going? And I think to the question just before too, humanity, competition, conflict expands and contracts constantly. Human culture is human culture, right? Made up of many subcultures, and we are who we are. We survive for a reason, and I think, while the future of work and the future of what our kids might do for money to survive is probably going to be entirely unlike our lives. I think it'll be fine, right? I think hopefully, instead of this human-designed 9 to 5, 2 weeks off a year work culture, it will be much different and better. I think this whole longevity movement, this whole don't die movement, right, that Brian Johnson's marketed so well, but is underlying all the genetic research, all the gene editing, all the mRNA stuff, all the stuff that is meant to give us better lives in the future as we age, will also give us more time to just be human. So I think I generally take a very positive look on where the future is going. I think AI will save us from ourselves when it comes to sustainability and not destroying the planet. So I think that's the sort of optimistic outcome. One of.
My kids are 20.
I feel better for my kids now.
And maybe just building a bit on what Kevin's saying. I mean, I've got my kids are 20 and 17 now, and I've got typically Asian parents who really, maybe stereotypically wanted me to be, doctor, lawyer, engineer, etc., and go into a big company that I'd have a big career in and so forth. And I did start doing that, and I went down the sort of blue chip company route, and then I got the entrepreneurial bug, right? The one thing we can say for sure is the world is going to change very quickly now, right? And so the biggest number one thing your children need is to be creative and adaptive. Yeah, especially with AI, the one thing we're very good at, human beings, is being creative and adaptive. Yeah, we're going to get out competed in anything that's kind of process orientated and just algorithmically orientated and everything else. So if I was in fact, actually with my children, we did give them that space. So both of them, by the way, were very strong, as you can imagine. My husband's also an economist. Maths, engineering, computing, they were great at that. My son is actually studying to do product design at RISD in America. It's very creative, design school. actually. He could have gone down the engineering route. We let him go down the creative route, actually. And he has both. I say with my daughter, she's very strong at sciences, but she also loves fashion, she loves health, she loves other things. She wants to go down a hybrid route of, right now she could do fashion or she could do neuroscience, right? We're letting her explore that and work that out, because I think what's more important is they both learn to know themselves and they adapt to the world as it changes. So I would say to you as parents, that's the thing to look at. There is no safety and security. Yeah? There is no, they'll have a 9-to-5 job and they're going to be okay in this next period. You just don't know that. So let them be adaptive. Let them be creative. Yes, have a great education. There's still some fundamentals they need to learn. But that's kind of where I would go, Jerry.
Thank you.
The third one I can share with you. Anyway, hey Jerry, I have 3. If the question is, how do you get the third one, I can share with you.
Okay.
Anyway,
we'll talk offline.
You just mentioned you have 2. I think that the important thing is for AI to be successfully commercialized, it has to be human. That's my belief. I don't think, probably this is too, I think this agentic phenomenon will be, how to make money. It will be the interim phenomenon for me, because if we boil down everything to how to make money, if the product is not humane enough, I don't think it will sell. So being humane to a large extent, I can echo what just Wendy mentioned, being creative, curious. And so I wouldn't worry too much about AI will destroy us. Because for me, my perception still now AI is a tool, not an agent. I know a lot of people talking about agent in the near future, but for manufacturing, I think it takes a while.
You have to ask yourself, what is work? So I think first of all, you have to ask yourself, what is work? In human history, where we go to so I think we're born in this very special era in human history where we go to a place and we do things and we get a salary and we use that salary to then do things we like. But if you go back in history, maybe 5,000 or 10,000 years, the hunter-gatherers, they spend all day long doing things they like. They never have this thing called job or work, right? And so if we end up inventing AIs that can do everything, then we're going to go back to the life of spending every day just having fun, because the value creation activities will be done by the machines and AIs, and we're just going to do, like, when you want to eat, you can eat. When you want to get from point A to point B, you can get from point A to point B without the need to spend any money. Then why would you work, right? You want to do things you enjoy, right? So I think we're born in an era where work is sort of this mainstream thing. So you thought that work is permanent, but it is not. It is just a phenomena in a certain period of human history. Right. So if, like Kevin said, AI would end up becoming so good, it's going to save us. I think it's going to save us in a way that we're going to be able to be freed up from boring jobs, and we'll be spending most of our time doing more meaningful things. And then on top of that, in the short term, I think what James said earlier was very insightful, right? It's going to be a long time before AI learns, and also Wendy was talking about that. It's going to be a long time before AI learns to do blue collar and very sophisticated tasks, right? So at least in the next 10 to 20 years, you can still take a quite blue collar job and sustain yourself. So I'm not sure if many of you know, if you're a very diligent Uber driver in Taiwan today, your monthly salary would be even better than a junior Google engineer, right? And so like, if you just want to survive, there's so many jobs you can do in the meantime until AI gets good enough that you will never work, right? So I'm not sure if we should worry. And I think fundamentally, I think Asian parents, we project so much of our regrets, sort of our children. We want our children, our preferences or our regrets onto our children. Like we want our children to fulfill the things that we didn't get to do or do better. But they have their own lives. They'll figure things out themselves. Even if then they end up doing this job or that job, you don't appreciate. If they're happy. They're happy having a good life. And like even 2 years ago, if you tell me that you found a job at Intel, everybody will applaud you. Today, if you say that you're going to work for Intel, people are going to say, are you crazy, right? So like all of the good companies you're talking about right now, 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, maybe they're no longer good companies, right? So I think it's the biggest problem is Asian parents. We need to like just let go, let the kids have their own lives.
Yeah, I think this is really a very philosophical question, and I think that's also a perfect question to end today. And I think we just share about, because AI almost maybe can do anything, which means that being versus doing, right? Just we can do everything, but what kind of being we want to be as a human being? And I feel like just like what Wendy just mentioned, that because once you can, everyone, if they can master to use a tool, then what will be the uniqueness as a human being, right? Because everyone, once you use that, you can kind of generate the answer, whatever you can give the right prompting. So I think that's a really a good kind of closing question to leave to everyone to think about that. And maybe that's also can be an inspiration when you think about the next business idea, then how you can create and also help the world will be better. So thank you for everyone's question, and also thank for all the panelists. I really think that's a very authentic sharing, and very kind of a thought-provoking type of sharing. So thank you, and hope all the members that you also feel today's dialogue is very insightful for you, and hope we will see each other soon. Thank you.
谢谢大家，谢谢大家。这个节目后来会后制，然后会放在 YouTube 频道跟台湾大哥大买 video 以及其他串流平台上面。好，谢谢哦。我们再次大家再次掌声，谢谢各位讲者，谢谢。Thank you， 谢谢。他们会，你放在桌子上面。Thank you brother， Thank you。谢谢。谢谢。好的，那接下来呢，我会把我的主持棒交给我们另外一位超级大美女9L。好的，那接下来呢，我会把我的主持棒交给我们另外一位超级大美女9L。然后我请9L介绍她自己，谢谢大家，请大家掌声鼓励一下，谢谢。
Hello， 有声音好，大家好，我是 Google 的大客户部门的广告的大客户的Hello， 有声音好，大家好，我是 Google 的大客户部门的广告的大客户的客户经理9L。好，那我们接下来呢，刚刚大家有听完就是非常精彩的行业的硬知识到的实际的产业的案例，然后以及到最后就是非常 life provoking 的这个分享，所以大家希望都有很多的 inspirations。那我们接下来呢，就是刚刚已经结束了全明星的阵容，那接下来其实还有2场非常精彩的产业专题演讲哦。那我们接下来会欢迎到2位的讲者，一位是来自Extreme Tech Challenge 的 Victoria， 那另外一位呢是来自 Google Cloud 的技术副总我们的 Wayne。那我们接下来就是有这2场的科技以及市场趋势的专题分享，那也会为大家带来非常多的产业 insights 以及未来就是 AI 相关的发展趋势。那我们首先就把我们的时间先交给我们的 Victoria， 那我们欢迎 Victoria 上台 ，Let's give her a round of applause to welcome Victoria to the stage, and she will share a lot of insights for you. Okay.
Awesome, thank you. Do I have a clicker?
Well, thank you for having me.
Do I have a clicker for the slides?
And it's wonderful to be back in Taipei.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be back in Taipei.
I've been building innovation ecosystems for the past 10 years in various different capacities. So I'm happy to be here today to share some of my learnings throughout the years. I currently head ecosystem for a deep tech venture fund called Walden Catalyst Ventures. That was co-founded by two legendary semiconductor icons, Lip-Bu Tan and Young Sung. Lip-Bu Tan was most recently chairman and CEO of Cadence Design Systems for 10 years, and he started his career in investment at GIC, which is a Singaporean sovereign wealth fund. And Young Sung most recently was corporate president of Samsung and chief strategy officer, and he still serves as the chairman of Samsung Semiconductor Advisory Board and the chairman of Samsung's company, Harman International. So that's day job number one. And I also run Young Sung's nonprofit called Extreme Tech Challenge that he co-founded with Bill Tai, whom, if you're there semiconductor folks here, Bill Tai was TSMC's employee #1, and he was also a founding partner of Charles River Ventures as one of the most successful early stage investors of our times. So the mandate of Extreme Tech Challenge as a nonprofit is to build a global ecosystem that supports entrepreneurship, providing what we call a secret sauce to help entrepreneurs scale, which means global visibility, access to VCs and CVCs, corporate VCs. Third, connect the opportunities for corporate strategic partnerships, and then lastly, mentorship. So, and my other perspective in looking at deep tech ecosystem is, prior to this, I was University of California system-wide global head of innovation entrepreneurship, and that gave me a unique perspective in looking at not just scaling startups, but looking at the entire life cycle, from IP to creating spin-outs to scaling startups, not just for students, faculties, but from alumni as well. Let me just kind of take you through some of my learnings, and if we have a little bit of time, I'd love to get some questions in here as well. So we define deep tech as novel scientific or engineering breakthroughs making their way to products and companies for the first time. And I think we're at this really, really exciting intersection of time right now, is that there's a lot of attention on deep tech innovations because more attentions are now being focusing on how do you solve the global challenges, right? And how do you, move impactful research through the commercialization pipeline so that we can solve poverty, inequality, resource scarcities, physical and mental health, climate change is a big topic, privacy, cybersecurity, and freedom and sovereignty, as we're preparing ourselves for the next waves of innovation that's right now predominantly dominated by AI. And you'll see that deep tech as a category right now accounts for about 20% of the global venture investment, and that has gone up for 10% for 10 years ago. So you really see there's a lot of drivers into pushing and accelerating deep tech, that you see more patient capital and more interest in funding this area. And also, there's the notion of sovereignty and creating more country-specific competitive advantages. So there are specific sectors under deep tech around novel AI, future of compute, talked about space tech, energy, computational biology and chemistry, looking at the intersection of AI, machine learning with therapeutics, advanced materials, robotics, which we heard quite a bit from Wendy today, drones, and then other disciplines around cybersecurity, synthetic biologies, and so forth. So this is, in totality, what we're classifying as deep tech. So why does deep tech need a slight variations of ecosystem? Is because the risk profile is different. Right, so if you're looking at this chart, this graph over here, is that you'll see deep tech has sort of leaning different dimensions towards traditional regular tech. And I'll just start from the #1 thing that pops out as capital intensity. A lot of these companies that would need CapEx to get going. Hardware is involved. This is not just a SaaS company. So that capital intensity, which means patient capital, which means more upfront investments, larger upfront investments to get going. Development risks, of course, longer initial development phase. Team risk, many of these companies are spin-outs from academia, from universities, and whether these technical founders can become CEOs and gain business capabilities to do so, or finding co-founders that have the business experience. Technology risk, of course, these are typically very, very early technologies get spin out, and then so that creates a specific dynamics compared to regular tech. But I think the advantage with deep tech here is that, especially in infrastructure tech, when you're talking about compute, semiconductor chips, data AI infrastructure, is that these are global businesses and they're global winners. So in this kind of business, is winner take all. So you'll see that once it scales and you prove through validation, there's less market risk and there's less competition risk. So let's just go through the 6 key components of developing a thriving deep tech ecosystem. One is the diverse stakeholders that, which we really see here, that there's a community of corporations, startups, academia, government entities, and VCs, each playing a really critical role. And I think the notion of open innovation is changing the dynamics and changing the culture so that corporations are more willing to work with startup companies, to co-develop, to invest and take innovations out to market, because there will potentially be customers, but also potentially be acquirers of that startup someday. And I think everybody has a role, and we'll talk a little bit about the specific roles as we roll through these slides. Second, especially through deep tech, all these innovations, ecosystems, all are anchored by research universities. So really strong academic base that can create spin-outs from the research. And also, if you're looking at university ecosystem, and I had the pleasure of doing it by leading innovation entrepreneurship for the UC system, which is the headquarters of 10 University of California UC schools. 5 of them have medical centers and 3 national laboratories. So what you'll see is, I think university these days have really robust infrastructures like incubators, accelerators, mentorship programs to give students the proper support, right, to get going with your initial idea, and access to specialized facilities like labs and test beds to get the early validations of that product. And then the next is capital support. Deep tech is hard. Hardware is hard. It takes a long time. So we heard that from the panel before, that patient capital is important, and also exploring diverse funding sources. And I think what you'll find in deep tech is these are typically born out of national directions. If you see sort of the CHIPS Act, right, of the U.S., is that this typically has very robust government support in order to get the ecosystem going and to kick off the innovation cycle. And patient capital is one of such as well. And my suggestion to founders here, if you're building deep tech companies, that as you're going out, build these early relationships with VC, is do your homework, because if you're too early for a VC, you're going to end up losing a lot of time, because it takes time, right, to engage with your VCs. So I think you have to do your homework, and also if you're raising, you have to do your homework to understand the allocation of that VC, because deep tech takes many, many rounds of funding to get through commercialization, and typically high CapEx. So you want to take money from lead investors that have the allocation to back you for multiple rounds, right? Not just bring money for this round, but also bring their network and their connections that can help you build syndicates for your next round, help you build team, right, as you build out, and also to help you acquire customers as well. So I think it's finding that right, quote unquote, product market fit with investors also very important, so that you're not wasting time. whenever there's a policy change. And then this was mentioned earlier today as regulatory and policy framework. Whenever there's a policy change, it's actually a junction for opportunities, and you'll see that. I saw that in the early stages of clean tech in late 2000s. Is that because there were subsidies that were very robust in Europe, and therefore it just sort of kick-started this whole industry, right, for solar and wind back in Germany and Spain when they had really, really rich tariffs. So those are really great examples. Also EVs right now, right, with the rebates and subsidies in the US that can really accelerate adoption of new technologies. And then understanding clear regulatory guidelines. For instance, there's a lot of conversation these days about AI ethics, right? How do we manage AI responsibly? How do we develop AI application responsibly so that it's democratic and the benefits can be felt by all?
Hatcher here is really great.
5 informal collaborations and mentorship programs. I think a program like Hatcher here is really great. Forums like this that bring people together, that foster the community. And my suggestion here is, and we talked about a little about mentorship programs earlier today, that it has to be an active process, and it has to be continuous. So thinking about, there are formal programs like that, but then thinking about how you can maintain those relationships, right? So that it's not sporadic, and you can create relationships and connections that can carry you far into the future. So I think all you guys are here. It's great because rule number 1 and advice number 1 is just show up.
And then focus on
you never know who you're going to meet and what kind of conversations that you're going to have to help you propel forward. And then focus on impact. I think we talked a little bit about today about deep tech solving global challenges, and you really build this momentum and the next generations of youth, right? They base their purchase decisions as well on how well or how sustainable and how responsible the companies are doing. So I think this is just all the right momentums towards that. And there was someone that asked an earlier question about how do you balance AI with sustainability. And sure, you can always increase alternative energy production, but I also think that there's a lot of opportunities in investing into startups that are building low power electronics, building new semiconductor chip architectures that consumes less energy, because most of that energy consumed is actually about moving data, right? So it's innovating on these things that can really bring down and help AI applications to scale without having to tap out on energy production. So here are just some of the examples of the top 10 countries that are really rich in deep tech ecosystems. I come from Silicon Valley, so I can definitely speak to the culture there. And what you'll find is the commonality is that they all have really strong government support and initiative in driving the direction. Oh, how do I go back? They're all anchored by leading academic institutions. And in the case of Silicon Valley, you have Stanford, you have Berkeley, and others. But I think it's also adopting the culture, right? I think what's happening in Taiwan is very exciting. There's great entrepreneurial energy, and there's people with great ideas. But I think it's thinking big, right? How do you solve some global issues and not thinking about solving local, right? Because risk capital, like venture capital, will invest in companies that are looking at a huge addressable market. But also, I believe in cross-pollination. Forum like this, having folks come back, having built successful companies abroad, and infuse that culture, bring their connections, and bring their expertise, and bring their relationships. That's, I think, how you're going to enrich ecosystems, particularly in Taiwan, which I'm personally very, very excited about. And I think the era of AI is the era of Taiwan. Look at our unique advantages in semiconductor manufacturing. Look at our advantages in electronic design. And these are all the infrastructures that are needed to power the next generation of sort of omni AI society that we're moving towards. So I'm even more excited and more optimistic about that. And then I'll leave with this last thought is I really believe in the power of innovation, of entrepreneurship, and global collaborations to create a future that we want to live in. And I believe in democratizing opportunities so that you're creating societal benefits and economic prosperity for all. Thank you so much for having me. And my last QR code is an access to Extreme Tech Challenge. So we hold global competitions, speak at conferences like CES, TechCrunch Disrupt. Our next event is October 28 in San Francisco, Semiconductors and AI Innovation Forum. We're actually sponsored by Foxconn, so thank you for Honghai Foxconn for your support. So I'm happy to welcome everybody to join our community and follow us, and we've got some really great resources. Again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for your fruitful sharing. 然后刚刚那个 Victoria 已经帮大家把 Deep Tech Innovations 的整个生态圈需要注意的6大重点都帮大家整理好。那如果大家接下来针对 Deep Tech 的 Innovation 有任何需要 consult Victoria 的机会的话，都欢迎借由刚刚的这个联络方式直接 reach out 或者 LinkedIn 直接 PM Victoria for more information。那我们接下来马上就欢迎我们的 Google Cloud 的技术副总 Wayne 来为大家带来技术以及市场的趋势分享。欢迎 Wayne。
大家好，我是来自 Google Cloud 的 Wayne。那今天的话，就来我这边来各位分享，在 Google Cloud 我们是用什么样的角度跟思维帮助各位创新的专家来做下一个世代的这个成长。那在开场之前，我先跟各位 share 一下，其实在 Google 有非常多不同的组织。那 Google Cloud 跟 Google 有一个最大的不同是什么呢？Google 的精神是 share information 给每一个人，那 Google Cloud 我们是 share 我们的 power 给每一个人。这个 power 是什么？它可以是很多种意涵，但最简单的一个讲法就是说，它把 大 Google 这些所有的技术打包成可以让所有创新跟创业者能够使用的技术底层，让各位可以通过像拼积木的方式，把 Google 的技术应用在你们的系统当中、你们的应用当中。所以 powering your next era of growth， 它的精神就是怎么样运用 Google 的技术来帮助各位的应用，来提升各位客户的体验。那这边我们所讲的这个 power， 在最近的话呢，各位一定可以比较直接联想到的这个 power 就是 AI。那我们跟非常多的这个创业者互动之后，其实也归纳出来了4个不同的创业者在不同领域使用 Google AI。他会用什么样的路程来完成他的服务的推进？这4个路程一般会是像这样子哦。第一个接触的时候呢，可能是作为帮助他的 productivity 的增长的一个用途。比方说最简单的，我在文件的编辑上面，我在写程式的这个部分，通过 AI 的方式帮我辅助去生成一些文件、生成内容，或是生成我的程式。这是第一个 level， 我们叫它托领的这个 level。那这个 level 完成之后呢，其实大部分的使用者会发现一件事情，他其实需要会的这个 skill， 其实经历了一些改变。从以往我可能需要会写程式，到现在我需要是教我的这个 AI 的机器人如何写程式，所以 workforce 的这个能力其实有一些改变，这是第2个阶段。这2者的变革完成之后，下一个变革就是当他可以把这些新的知识、新的能力应用在他的这个产品跟服务上面，就会产生一些这个 innovation 的想法。导致它的产品跟服务发生新的变化，最后呢，这些变化影响到了整个 global economy， 有了很好的增长，吸引到非常多消费者，让所有的这个世界因为它的新的服务有了这些变化。所以这4个不同阶段是我们看到在这个创新的这个不同的采用 AI 的阶段的时候，会得到不同的这些效益哦。那在这里面，其实 Google Cloud 的话呢，到底我们提供的 power 是什么呢？其实我们觉得我们提供的 power 来自于3个面向。第一个面向是画面右上角的 Google 的 leading 的 infrastructure。这边讲的 leading 的 infrastructure， 各位比较耳熟能详的可能是 GPU， 但是事实上 Google 我们除了在 Google Cloud 上面提供 GPU 给这个所有的创业者来做租用之外，其实我们也提供一个非常特殊的硬体加速器，它叫做 TPU。 TensorFlow 的这个 processing unit， 这个加速器呢，它其实能够比 GPU 更有效率，而且可以更快速的完成加速的这个工作，让你今天在训练你的模型的时候，可以有更好的体验。那所以第一个维度，我们所谓的这个分享了 power， 就是把 Google 内部的这个 power Google 这个机器的这个引擎分享给大家来做使用。那第二个就是说，如果我是一个创业家，但是我今天还没有走到一个步骤，是说我需要用大量的算力去算我的这个模型的话，那 Google 能不能够把你的模型来让我们做使用呢？答案是可以的。所以在上面的左边这边是一个 Google 的 World Leading Model。那这 model 里面呢，我们推出了非常多的不同的 model， 让各位可以直接使用我们的 model， 而不需要自己去重新训练自己的引擎。那另外一个层次就是说，假设我今天的这个服务，我还没有思考好到底它要针对什么样的使用者，在什么情境做上线，但是我现在这个时间点，我就希望利用 Google 工具来达成我在这个效率上面 productivity 的这个升级，或者在各种办公的作业环境当中有更好的体验的话呢，那就是最下方这边，其实目前 Google 的这个不管是算力，不管是我们的 model， 都 embedded 在我们非常多的 service 里面，让大家可以做体验。从 Google 啊，从 YouTube 啊 ，Gmail 啊 ，Maps 啊 ，Play Store 啊，那到 Android 上面，其实都有非常多的这个应用，可以跟 AI 来做整合，然后呢，去发掘新的一些想法跟使用方式。那一般来说，我们在讲这个 AI， 其实是有一个非常多的层次的。从以往的 AI， 其实我们现在更倾向于叫它是 predictive 的 AI。就是说，它一般是用来解决，比如说回归啊、分类啊、分群、预测、语言分析，这类型的问题。现在我们把这类型的问题叫做传统的问题，但事实上它还是一个蛮难解决的一个 AI 的问题。那第二个阶段其实是所谓的生成式 AI， 这个我想各位在过去2年应该都被洗版洗得很严重了。生成式 AI 其实我觉得啊，在一开始的时候没有这个 term 的时候，大家应该就很熟悉了。其实几年前在用 Google Search Engine 的时候，你就会发现，其实我只要输入一个 A， 它可能就会出现 App， 可能出现 Apple， 这个就是一个最基本的一个生成式 AI 的场景，它会帮你自动去填字。那生成式 AI 呢，大部分的情况我们指的是，现在我更认为它是所谓 1.0 的这个下一世代的 AI 了。为什么呢？它主要就是看前面你输入的内容是什么，我就把后面的补上。但在 Google 来看呢，我们认为真正下一个世代的 Generative AI， 它应该是一个 Multi-Model 的这个 AI。那什么是 Multi-Model 呢？其实我觉得最好想象的就是人就是一个 Multi-Model 的。今天各位看到我的这个简报，你把它吸收之后，你可能把它变成文字。那今天你写了一个这个简报的讲稿，你把它融会贯通之后，把它画成图片。其实文字、语音跟图片这三者，这多个不同 model， 在人身上其实是在同一个 model 里面体现，就是大脑。那传统的生成式 AI， 其实文字只解决文字的问题，这个音乐影片只解决影片的问题，图像只解决图像的问题。但是在未来，我们可以看到，真正一个比较好的模型，具有深度理解能力的模型的话，它必定会是一个多模态的这个 multi-model 的 generative AI 的这样的模型。那在这个世代里面呢，在这个 generative AI、multi-model generative AI 的这个场景里面，那为什么 Google Cloud 的 AI 能够提供各位最大的帮助呢？其实这里面有3点，我觉得我蛮自豪能够帮Google 来跟各位做分享的。第一个其实是我们是based on我们非常多年累积下来的这个研发的这个能力跟成果。其实，在生成式 AI 推出之前，他们大部分的这些训练的方式都是based on一个叫 Transformer 的一个论文。那篇论文就是 Google 在2017年发表的。那 Google 是目前少数的公司能够自己有研发的团队，还有研究的团队，再加上算力的团队，这3个团队整合起来，所以中间的这个panel 上面提到的，它是一个深度整合的一个平台，也是 Google Cloud AI 一个非常特别的地方，就是我们不只整合软体、硬体模型，我们甚至整合我们研发跟研究的成果，在 Google Cloud 上面让各位来做应用。那最后就是说 ，Google Cloud 其实服务的对象大部分都是企业，大部分都是公司行号。 所以在使用 AI 的时候，我们常遇到了一些资安的问题啊，隐秘性的问题啊，包括一些权限的设定啊，这些功能其实预设呢，在使用 Google Cloud 的 AI 呢，就是可以去做设定跟去防护你的资料不会做到外泄。那based on这些我们训练、研究、研发算力的成果，其实在2个维度上面 ，Forrester 都给 Google 非常高的评价哦。第一个这个图是在讲的是这个 AI 的 Foundation Model 的部分。那所谓 Foundation Model 在 Google 的 Model 其实就是我们所谓的 Multi Model 的这个 Model。那你可以看到 Google 的这个 Pinpoint 在画面最右上方的角色。那这最右上方的代表是说，在这个领域上面越接近右上方，就是这个领域领导的专家。那我们除了在 Foundation Model 上面呢，具有一个非常好领导性的角色之外，其实在算力上面 ，Google 也是一个具有非常大算力能量的领导者。那这一张图是在讲的是 AI Infrastructure， 那跟 Foundation Model 不同的是，这张图评鉴的是在这个企业里面，它有多大的算力，能够在多好的 quality 的情况下，把这个 model 运算出来。简单讲白话的话，这个图可以这样去看。那 Google 仍然是在一个领先的这个角色。那这2张图其实最重要的，我觉得不是显现 Google 有多厉害，而是各位在使用 Google Cloud 的资源的时候，是能够使用到这画面最右上线领导角色的这些资源，来帮助各位来成就各位的这些应用跟服务的。那整个 Google Cloud 的 portfolio 在Gen AI 呢，其实是分成很多个不同的组合的。我会更认为它其实是一个团体，而不是一个不同独立的模组。那这个团体里面呢，有非常多的不同的小的这个服务，那针对不同的使用的场景，包括对 developer 的话，我们有一个叫 Vertex AI 的 platform， 在这个 platform 上面呢，各位可以把你们想要进行的运算上传到这个 platform 上面去，让它来代替你代管，并且完成这个运算。那对 user 而言，如果我今天想要直接使用的是 Google 的 model 的话，在 Google 的这个大语言模型 LLM， 其实我们推出了这个 multi model 的这个 model 的名称叫做 Gemini。那为什么取名叫 Gemini 呢？双子座的原因就是因为它就是属于一个多模态混合型的这个模组。那在 Gemini 的这个model 里面呢，其实又有2个分支。如果我今天是在 Workspace 里面使用，就是我在用 Google 的这个Google Slides 啊、Google Sheets 啊，或是 Google Docs， 这里面 embedded 有一个 Gemini， 可以让大家来互动，去生成文章、生成内容。那我今天如果想要把这个大脑、这个模型放到我自己的服务里面的话，那就是直接使用 Gemini 这个 model 去安装到你的服务里面就可以了。那最底层这边呢，就是指的是说，这所有不管是 for builders、for users 的这些服务，其实都是 run on Google Cloud 的这个 infrastructure 的。那 Google Cloud 的 infrastructure 有一个蛮大的特色，就是说它在全球各个区域都有建立资料中心，所以你今天做的这个服务，假设是跨全球的话，它会自动使用离使用者最近的资料中心来做服务，来保证这个服务的品质是最佳的。是非常适合。那接下来的话，我们就花一点时间来分享一下，到底 Gemini 它有哪一些特色跟特性是非常适合 startup 来做使用的。那第一个就是我们刚刚提到，它是一个原生的 multi model 的这种模型。那第二个我觉得蛮有趣的是，其实一般我们在用这个大语言模型，常常想要避免的一个现象就是它胡乱说话。它去幻想出一些内容，但是 Gemini 呢，它产生的内容基本上是可以 based on Google Search 的内容，所以 Google 在全世界通过爬虫爬到所有的网站的这些内容，放到 Google Search 之后，这样的 data 也用来 support 我们去这个训练 Gemini， 以及在 Gemini 生成内容的时候会去 reference 这个实际有来源的这些 data。那画面这个下面最右边的这个最大特色就是说 ，Gemini 一般我们在讲这个大语言模型的时候，都会思考一件事情，所谓这个大语言到底有多大？也就是说，我每一次指令可以给的这个 instruction 有多少？我每次要它生成一段程式码，它能够看其他的程式码，然后归纳而后生成的这个程式码的这个长度有多长？这个就是在讲一般一个很重要的这个大语言模型的效能指标，叫做 context window。那 Gemini 提供这个世界上最大的 context window。高达200万个 token 这样的这个长度。那这3个不同的特色可以应用在哪些场景呢？首先，我们来看这个 multi model 的部分哦。 multi-model 它其实最有趣的是，我今天跟大语言模型互动，不再是我只能下文字的 prompt 要它给我答案，甚至我可以像这个画面上一样的是说，请告诉我下面这个饼干的 recipe 是什么，它会通过理解这个图片的内容，帮我产生回答。那这就是一种 multi-model 最自然的能力，就是我可以从图片生成文字。相反的，我也可以给它一个 recipe， 叫它生成一个图片，是这个 recipe 煮出来会是什么样的样貌。所以这就是一个 native multi-model 能够提供的一个非常大的能力，就是说我不需要再在乎我到底输入的是文字、语音，还是图片，还是照片，还是影片。我只需要把我需要的资讯用我熟悉的方式输入到模型里面，那它就可以给我想要的这个回应。这个是在第一个部分。教育的领域里面，那第二个在这个 Google Search 的部分，这边其实我们可以看到，其实尤其应用在医疗啊、教育的领域里面，其实我没有幻觉，在使用大语言模型是非常重要的。所以在 Google 提供的这个 Gemini 的模型里面呢，因为它背后是 Google Search Engine， 所以它可以告诉你说，当我今天生成这些内容之后，这些内容的来源跟出处是哪里。让这个来源跟出处呢进一步佐证你的这个生成内容是可靠而且安全的。那对于这个很大的这个 context window 啊，其实刚刚有提到所谓这个 context window 就是我一个大语言模型能够支援的输入跟输出的这个内容的体量有多少。那在这里面其实对几个情境是非常有帮助的。第一个就是说像这种我今天要编写程式码，它可以借由阅读我曾经写过的所有程式码，了解说我到底要写什么程式来进行这个程式码的这个生成。那或又是说我今天要做一个是文件的总结，它也可以是让我输入整个文件，或者说是整个书籍的内容来帮我做总结，而避免说我今天总结是背上某一个段落的部分来做成总结，那有一些资讯的误导跟偏差。其实这个很大的这个 context window 真正代表一件事情，就是说我今天这个大语言模型在理解 user input 的这个内容的时候，它能够更准确的而且更完整的去理解到底我需要输出的内容的时候，需要 cover 哪些面向的这些资讯，那来达到一个输出的品质会比较高的这个成果。那纵轴这边讲，所以一般而言，我们会用2个维度来评鉴说到底大语言的模型表现的好不好。那纵轴这边讲的是这个 quality 的这个维度，就是我回答内容精不精准。那横轴是表达的是我回答的够不够快。那 Gemini 这个 model 呢，它其实除了它其实有分好几个版本，那不同的版本表现其实不太一样。那可以根据这个图上面来选择各位喜欢使用的版本。到底我希望产出的是 quality 比较好的呢，还是这个产生的这个效能比较快的这样的模型？那最后呢，我这边用一个结尾的影片来跟大家最后体验一下，到底所谓 multi-model 在日常生活中能够达到什么样的这个体感？那在这个影片里面呢，各位待会会看到的是一个主播拿着他的这个手机。那他在这个手机去拍摄他环境的物品的时候呢 ，Gemini 会 real time 的根据这个现实的状况做一些回答，甚至呢还有一些蛮有趣的这个，我先卖个关子，它有一个问答是非常有趣而且非常特别的。那这边可以请帮我播放这个影片吗？谢谢。
Okay, let's do some tests. Tell me when you see something that makes sound. Okay, let's do some tests. Which makes sound. Tell me when you see something that makes sound. Part of the speaker called?
I see a speaker, which makes sound. It produces high-frequency sound.
What is that part of the speaker called?
That is the tweeter. It produces high-frequency sounds. Creative crayons color cheerfully.
Give me a creative alliteration about these.
Creative crayons color cheerfully. They certainly craft colorful creations. This code defines encryption and decryption.
What does that part of the code do?
This code defines encryption and decryption functions. It seems to use AESCBC encryption to encode and decode data based on a key and an initialization vector, IV.
That's right. What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London. It is known for its railway station and transportation connections.
Do you remember where you saw my glasses?
Yes, I do. Your glasses were on the desk near a red apple.
What can I add here to make this system faster? What can I add here to make this system faster? What does this remind you of?
Adding a cache between the server and database could improve speed. Schrodinger's cat.
What does this remind you of? Give me a band name for this duo.
Schrodinger's cat.
All right, give me a band name for this duo.
Golden Stripes.
Nice. Thanks, Gemini.
这个大语言模型它的特色，第一个就是说它是 native demultiple。好，那这个影片其实我觉得是一个最好的总结 Gemini 这个大语言模型它的特色。第一个就是说它是 native demultiple， 就是你可以发现，在过程当中，它既少了影像，也少了这个程式码。那可以在同一个对话当中，让 Gemini 就可以理解不同事物背后呈现的不同的意涵。那最后一个呢，它寻找眼镜的这个部分，其实就是一个很好呈现这个 context window 大的时候可以做到什么样的事情。那代表的是 Gemini 呢这样的 model 可以在过程当中也记得刚刚到底发生什么事，然后从记忆里面去调出可以使用的资讯。那今天就是以上我的分享，谢谢各位。
那等一下，谢谢 Wayne， 让我们从 Gemini 的框架原理到最后的实际案例有一个非常 overall 的分享哦。那等一下，接下来我们有10分钟的休息时间。那在休息时间，也可以大家趁 Victoria 还在的时候，以及 Wayne 还在的时候，可以大家来交换名片或是询问问题。那现场也可以欢迎大家有更多的交流。那我们后面也有就是用心准备的小点心，让大家可以在中场休息的时候享用。那接下来我也先预告一下，接下来下半场的环节呢，总共会有2个。一个是我们会邀请鸿海、Google Cloud 以及 PwC 来分享一下我们在新创扶植这一块领域有什么样的好康能够分享，有什么资源能够扶植我们在场的新创伙伴。所以接下来会有一个环节是由3家来分享我们的新创计划。那接下来会有1个小时的时间呢，我们有9家新创的 Demo Day。所以接下来如果大家享用完这个小点心，然后上完厕所之后，就可以在10分钟后回来到我们的会场。那我们将在3点05分的时候准时开始我们下半场。好，那接下来我们就到休息时间，谢谢大家。
Continually focused on the idea to have something that is both large but also relatively laser-sighted.
I think it's time now Taiwan here to go for home run, go for global now.
And we can jointly grow our future advantage, position Taiwan in moving to the world.
You need to take that first step to really put every effort into it, and it's going to be based on faith.
We need to switch our official language from Mandarin to English.
110 capacity， 我相信是现在每一个类型的领导者都会面临到的一个挑战。你要能够去整合不同专业跟不同背景包容的这个团队组成。
大家努力来做，我觉得机会是蛮大，这是我的信念。
这个新创其实就是企业的望远镜，帮助他去思考他的5年后、10年后要怎么走。
所以我们能够提供的就是一个大的出海口，另外一个就是大的一个实际的营运据点。 我们会 focus 在我们所能够提供的价值上面，来去做这个新创公司的投资。
Morning， 马总。这一次在 Project Hatcher 当中，我们创造了一个台湾最大的舞台，把你们最厉害的产品或者服务介绍给台湾成功的企业家，而且有机会争取到他们投资你们企业的机会。Are you ready? Yeah. 接下来马上进行第一阶段的分组比赛。第一个环节 Go Get It 的阶段里面呢，评审总共有5位。接下来让我们欢迎 Team A。
那我们的魔法呢，就是我们的 AI，
也就是 AI 老师傅。
EV 是未来的电动车订阅服务平台
，KOL 艺人都可以达到 AI 版的自己。
让小朋友去学习篮球的一个订阅制服务
我们希望可以帮助你们更好的照顾年迈的长者长辈。
赢在起跑点，我们就是一个平台呢，是在照顾你健康的，我们是一个虚拟健康顾问。
Team
I， 恭喜来自
来参加的人都是非常有经验的创业家。
他在这个领域上面有多少进展，有没有人投资啊？有蹦出新火花的
创业家应该要有的一个热情，这是我还蛮在意的。
基本上每一组都能够发展出来一个还不错的就是
好，所以接下来大家会跟阵容非常坚强的新创种子团队一起进行争夺投资资金的厮杀。在这一段 pitching 上面，我们有 YouTube 的 co-founder Steve Chen， 还有 Twitch 的 co-founder Kevin
A successful startup is this plus luck, timing, and a ton of hard work. Hello. Hey. We deploy wireless networks to make the energy transition work.
Fashion vertical e-commerce platform, and now we're trying to do a new business model to let influencers to establish their own brands by utilizing the verified platform skill.
Very interesting.
A lot of the pitches, a lot of the startup founders, they want to build everything, and they're probably capable of that.
It's rare to see these startups be successful on the global stage here in Taiwan. I think both the learning as well as the trial process to see whether or not that's something that we can adapt in Silicon Valley here to Taiwan.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah, it'll be very exciting to meet so many founders today. And yeah, let's wish them the best of luck.
Hello， 所有观众朋友，欢迎来到 Project Hatcher。我们今天在这一个舞台上面，也要看到他们进行一场前所未有的厮杀，有机会夺得这条奖金1000万元。
所以 Darkbrain 是一个 AI 助理，专门为创意产业打造。
In our case, we're smaller than all of the products right now.
通过我们是一个全自动、全数位化的工作流程，它只要4分钟就可完成。
Batteries, EV chargers, we don't make them, but we connect them.
Verify 新的服务就是我们想要帮网红无痛的打造自己的个人的服饰平台。
AIBD 审论可以实质解决90%那个碳排来自制造业的问题。设计人才上来之后，可以感受到一个很高度的自动化，以及我们帮他 take care 不需要去处理那些复杂的3D程序。
GoSky will provide business with a fast, no-code way to run a loyalty app on any social and messaging platform.
和我们一起打造全世界最好的围棋产业生态系。
OpenNext 的核心解决方案在于收购 YouTube 创作者过去的影片，在未来3到5年广告收益的权利。 让感测器不用紧贴在身上，同时也可以正确的感受到动作姿势。
我们希望找到更多的伙伴，和我们一起为台湾写下更美丽的故事。
接下来我们要把时间交给我们的评审委员，请他们经过讨论、打分，决定出2023年 Project Hatcher 今年的 Top 3到底是谁。
我还蛮喜欢这些人，我觉得其实有钱就是吧，不管结果怎么样，万事起头难啊，所以 Star 本来就是件非常难的事情，那你后面还要再 up， 其实也是很难。
用冲出台湾的视角去想你手上的生意，那我觉得在你未来的路上才会看到更多的人。
那今天在台湾这不止新创蓬勃发展，我们居然能够有一个专门 dedicate 给新创的这样的一个节目哦，非常为今天的12组团队感到高兴也骄傲。我觉得你们都有非常棒的产品，都有非常棒的潜力。那无论今天最后得奖是谁，我相信你们未来都会有很好的发展。
那我觉得透过这样的一个活动，其实是可以帮助大家更认识自己。创业是一条很孤独、很漫长的路。 所以你必须要在路上有很多的朋友跟你的伙伴去支持你。希望今天这样的活动，大家都有找到认识更多的伙伴。谢谢。
请用热烈的掌声还有尖叫声，恭喜的团队是